It turns out that in California, gay conversion therapy was recently banned, which is great news because it was banned specifically for minors, and for adults who decide they want to go through that type of torture, they have to sign a consent form indicating that this type of therapy does not work and it makes you mentally damaged. But recently, a bunch of therapists who practice this type of gay conversion therapy decided to challenge this law in court, and it turns out that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decided to uphold the law as constitutional. Now, I'm giving you guys way too much information. We actually have a video on this, so let's take a quick look at that and then we'll discuss.
Critics call it the cure, quote unquote, that only makes you worse. Reparative therapy is the official name for treatment that aims to turn someone who is gay straight. And now it's been banned in California. This is the first state in the nation that's done this for kids and for teenagers. Governor Jerry Brown signed this ban into law over this past weekend, and he tweeted about it. Let me read one of his tweets. Quote, "This bill bans non-scientific, quote, therapies that have driven young people to depression and suicide."
Now, that was CNN's report on the topic right after California Governor Jerry Brown signed the bill into law. So we still currently have that ban on gay conversion therapy, but I should note that it only applies or relates to licensed therapists. It does not apply to religious leaders and non-licensed counselors who might want to continue with this nonsense. Now, obviously, my thoughts on gay conversion therapy are very clear, but I want to open it up to the panel to get everyone else's thoughts. Dave, one of the big issues here is that religious leaders are arguing that, hey, this is a First Amendment issue. You know, this is the freedom of religion that's being violated here, and these therapists should be allowed to continue practicing gay conversion therapy. What do you think?
Yeah, well, of course, that in terms of licensed therapists, it absolutely should be banned. It's completely unscientific. It is proven to fail constantly. Even the biggest organization that does conversion therapy, even in the last 6 months, they've basically said this does not work. There are just no examples of it working. So in terms of the religious angle, we have a difference. There's civil law, and that's what dictates society. And then if a religious organization wants to go ahead and do this, although I don't like that, and I know a lot of bad can come out of that, and that's often where civil law is born out of, I guess we can't stop religious organizations from doing that. But it does not, dare I quote Lady Gaga in a segment about gays, but gays are born this way. It's as simple as that. You cannot change what is inherently built into you. It would be like trying to change a straight person and make them gay. It just simply will not work.
I'm sure that people will come to me with constitutional arguments as to why this could never happen, but if I were of any authority, I would definitely ban religious leaders from practicing this type of therapy. We have laws against cruel and unusual punishment, and I see gay conversion therapy as cruel and unusual punishment. You are destroying someone's mental well-being and mental health by telling them that they're sinful, that they're going to go to hell, that they have to change who they are. It's disgusting and deplorable. So I disagree with it. But what do you think, Sandra? You look like you're...
I have feelings and opinions. When you talk... Because I know a lot of therapists, I've gone to therapy conferences, and there's lots of non-evidence-based therapeutic practices.
Yeah, there are.
But that can actually be effective. They're just not, they haven't been studied scientifically or whatnot. But when you have proven harm, that's when you get into the problem of, well, wait, no, this is actually harmful.
Exactly.
So it's on the books, it's harmful. Mental health is in many ways just as important as your physical health. And the fact that, I mean, can licensed doctors do things that, because their religion says that that's a thing that you do to heal someone, but if it's ineffective and harmful, would a medical doctor be able to do something? Because it's part of their religion? I mean, it's like, if you apply it to other licensed professionals, it doesn't make sense to be able to do something.
Well, wouldn't that go to, there are certain Christian sects that don't want to use surgeries for certain things, and they think it's God's plan, and then the children end up dying of cancer or something, and when should the government step in? So it's a similar game that's being played between religious beliefs and civil law.
Jesse?
Yeah, I think that, you touched on this earlier, that religion really is the core of these problems. And I want to be completely clear that I think personally that God really is a moral impediment to making any traction in terms of thinking about human sexuality clearly. Because the assumption is that gay people should be fixed or cured because it's unnatural. Now, when we use the naturalism argument, we are assuming that there was a creator that had some preconceived idea about what we should be doing with our genitals. We should be using our genitals for reproductive purposes and nothing more. Everything else is inherently sinful. To have anal sex is sinful. It's a violation of what God had in mind. Take away the God issue, and that question is completely irrelevant. It doesn't have any weight whatsoever. There's no discussion or concentration or thinking about harm, which is really what we need to be thinking about here. But having said that, I do have mixed feelings, I suppose, because there are people who are absolutely, distressed in terms of their sexual orientation. In fact, even after homosexuality was removed from the DSM in 1973 as a psychiatric illness or a mental disorder, there was still some time where people that were gay but really, really didn't want to be gay could be diagnosed with a mental illness called ego-dystonic homosexuality. That was removed actually in the 80s as well. But there was that sort of period of time where there was a sensitivity or this sort of openness to the possibility that we want to help people if they are uncomfortable with their own sexual orientation. Now, it didn't work. So the problem is really trying to convey the understanding to gays and lesbians that are unhappy with their sexual orientation that it's not them that's sick, it's society that is sick. They live in a society that has convinced them that they are inherently evil or wrong, or their orientation is immoral or something along those lines.
Yeah, and the obsession with their sex lives and what they do in their bedroom is sick. I think if anything is perverted, I find that perverted. I don't sit around thinking about what a couple does in their bedroom because I don't care. I'm worried about what I'm doing in my bedroom.
I would liken it to handedness. If you are, I'm a lefty, and if I spend the rest of my life trying to become a righty, it's just not going to happen.
You can lie to yourself.
I can lie to myself, and I'll be able to scribble something that's not going to make sense, but it won't be as natural as me writing with my left hand. There was a time when being lefty was considered pretty immoral too, actually.
So this
dexterous.
Good for you.
So this is just based on opinion, but Dave, do you feel that gay conversion therapists initially had the right intentions? Or do you think that this was always a way of exploiting people? Because there have been cases of gay conversion therapists who have sexually assaulted or molested some of their subjects.
Of course, all these gay conversion therapy, it's always, let's go to the woods and we'll all get naked and lay on each other and discuss. I mean, it's all gay stuff because these guys are gay and they can't deal with it in the first place. So I do think they have lofty goals originally, thinking that it's their own way of sort of fixing themselves or rationalizing their own lives, but it's all because they can't accept themselves, and then they validate themselves by trying to change people that are going through the same thing they are.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I think that's certainly true now, and I think that gay conversion therapy is overwhelmingly a religious phenomenon. But back in the 1940s or 1950s, these were psychiatrists in the mainstream that just simply assumed that we needed to fix gay people because that wasn't the right way to be. They didn't really think about it, and some of them were atheists. They were biologically informed scholars. They didn't think that they needed to cure gay people because it was immoral, but because it was just the wrong way to be.
Yeah. All right, well, this case most certainly will go to the Supreme Court, so we will fill you in on that. But it's also important to keep in mind that New Jersey passed a similar law banning minors from having gay conversion therapy. And I love it. I hope that this continues to spread throughout the country. In fact, that's what some of the religious leaders are worried about, that this is the kind of thing that will have a domino effect. But if it does have a domino effect, awesome, because gay conversion therapy does not work.